The Constitution of India, Preamble. We, the people of India, having solemnly resolved to constitute India into a sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic and to secure to all its citizens justice, social, economic and political, liberty of thought, expression, belief, faith and worship, equality of status and of opportunity, and to promote among them all fraternity, assuring the dignity of the individual and the unity and integrity of the nation. In our Constituent Assembly, this 26th day of November 1949, do hereby adopt, enact and give to ourselves this Constitution.
Hello children, how do you do? Hope you are healthy and happy. I know you are preparing for the examination. Do your best, all the best for your exam, perform well, and if you are having any doubt related to botany, that is chapter number 1 to 4, you can call me and you can clarify the doubts. Okay children, we can move on to the next session with a new chapter. Chapter 7, Transport in Plants. Transport of substances over short distance takes place by diffusion. So, in plants, when the transportation of substances is taking place for a short distance, it is taking place by the process called diffusion. Long distance transport takes place by translocation. So, translocation is another process through which the long distance transportation of material is taking place. For example, in the case of herbaceous plants, with the help of diffusion or by the process called diffusion, the substance are transported. And in the case of trees, those who are having a height, isn't it? Those in the case of trees, long distance transportation is needed there and it is taking place by the process called translocation. Now, transport over long distance through vascular system is called translocation. What is translocation? Transport of substances is taking place for the long distance and it is taking place by means of vascular system and that process is called translocation. Transport of water and mineral is taking place through xylem and it is unidirectional, and transport of organic food is taking place through phloem and that is bidirectional. Next one, there are different means of transport taking place in the plants. Number 1, diffusion. Number 2, facilitated diffusion. Number 3, active transport. First we can see diffusion. What is diffusion? It is a movement of particles from high to low concentration without a protein. That means the movement of particle is taking place. It may be any particle, any molecule. It may be solvent or solute, or we can say the movement of a solution from the region of higher concentration to the region of lower concentration. That is called diffusion. Here you can see the particles, they are moving from region of higher concentration to the region of lower concentration. Here also you can see this is outside cell and this is the inside cell, and what is happening, the particles they are moving from outside, that is higher concentration where is present there, from there the particles they are moving inside the cell where low concentration of particle is present. So, this type of movement is called diffusion or simple diffusion. You can see here movement of particle from higher concentration to the lower concentration. See, the net movement of particles from an area of higher concentration to an area of low concentration is called diffusion. Due to the random movement of particles, a passive process, which means that no energy is needed. Random movement of particles are taking place. There is no separation between a solvent or a solute. Solution will be moving from higher concentration to lower concentration, and it is a passive process where no expenditure of energy is taking place, that is no energy is needed there. Now, what are the features of diffusion? We can see no energy expenditure, molecules move in a random fashion, it is a slow process, it occurs in gases and liquids. So, diffusion is mainly taking place in gases as well as in liquids. Now, we can see the factors affecting diffusions. Diffusion rate is being affected by gradient of concentration, that is the concentration of solute and solvent. If it is different, that is gradient, surely it will be affecting the rate of diffusion. Permeability of the membrane whether it is permeable or not, that is also a factor on which the diffusion rate is depending. Temperature as well as pressure. Okay, my dear children. So, these are the factors which is affecting the diffusion rate. Now, number 2. So, that one is related to simple diffusion. Now, we are going to understand about facilitated diffusion. Facilitated diffusion, here large and polar molecules cannot or can't get across the membrane via simple diffusion. When a simple diffusion is taking place, certain molecules they cannot move across the membrane. So, that time transmembrane or proteins recognize a particular molecule and help it to move across the membrane. The direction it moves is dependent on the concentration gradient. So, in this manner, so a protein molecules will be provided there and they will be helping for the molecules, those who are not able to move across the membrane, to move across the membrane. Such type of diffusion is known as facilitated diffusion. You can see here protein channels are formed there and carrier protein is present there. So, from the protein channel, the protein molecules, they are helping these molecules to move across the membrane, okay, from extracellular space to the intracellular space. In the extracellular space, we can see high concentration of molecule, and in the intracellular space we can see low concentration of the molecule. So, the movement of molecule is taking place from the region of higher concentration to the region of lower concentration, but here protein molecules are used as carrier protein which will be forming a protein channel also across the membrane, so that the molecules can be moved across the membrane. This process is called facilitated diffusion. You can see here, this is the carrier protein and these are the molecules. With the help of this carrier protein, these molecules are moved from the region of higher concentration to the region of lower concentration. I think you would have understood about facilitated diffusion. Facilitated diffusion is a type of diffusion in which hydrophilic substance move across the membrane along the concentration gradient through certain transport protein. Hydrophilic substances means some substances which are water loving substances. These substances are moving across the membrane and they are moving along the concentration gradient with the help of certain transport protein molecules, or we can say carrier protein molecules. And the diffusion across the membrane depends on, the diffusion of such molecules is depending on, number 1, size of the substances, that is smaller substances diffuse faster. If the substance is smaller, if the molecule is smaller, surely the diffusion of such molecules will be faster than the diffusion of larger molecule. Number 2, solubility in lipids. Substances soluble in lipids diffuse faster through membrane. Already we have studied about the bilipid layer, or we can bilayer of lipid in the case of the structure of cell membrane. Surely the substances those are soluble in lipid, they will be diffusing very faster through the membrane and they will be able to cross the membrane very easily. So, the movement of substances is facilitated through some proteins in the membrane. Protein present in the membrane forms a channel. Just now we understood that in the case of facilitated diffusion, proteins are forming a channel, and through the channel the molecules or the substances are transported from the higher concentration of the solution or solute to the lower concentration area. Okay. Now we can see features of facilitated diffusion. Number 1, no expenditure of ATP energy. It is similar to diffusion. It is a passive process. Now molecules move from higher concentration to lower concentration. Here it is very specific. Number 2, it is sensitive to inhibitors. That is, the inhibitor molecules, if they are present there, surely what will happen? Sometimes the diffusion may not take place. Similarly, if they are very sensitive, that is, they are very specific also, and their specificity depends on the protein carrier, or we can say protein molecules, as well as the concentration gradient, or we can say the molecules which can inhibit the process of diffusion for such molecules. So we can say they are very specific and they are very sensitive to the inhibitors. So these are the features of facilitated diffusion. You can see here related to simple diffusion and facilitated diffusion. Here diffusion is taking place without a helper protein, and in this case diffusion using a helper protein. You can see two figures here. Without the protein molecule, the diffusion is taking place from higher concentration to lower concentration, but here what is happening, carrier proteins are present there which are acting as a channel through which the molecules are moving across the chamber, or we can say across the membrane. So that is related to simple diffusion and facilitated diffusion. It is very important, my dear children, you have to go through it. Next one is porins. These are proteins that form huge pores in the outer membrane of plasmid, mitochondria and some bacteria. In some bacteria, in mitochondria, in plasmid, the protein are present there and they are forming a pore in the outer membrane of these organelles, or we can say organism. These are called porins, and here you can see porins are channels. What are porins? They are channels located in the outer membrane of the gram negative bacteria. Example it is, example for gram negative bacteria we can see porin, they are in the form of channels. Okay, my dear children. So that is related to porin, and one of the important porin is aquaporin. When an extracellular molecule is bound to the transport protein rotate and release the molecule inside the cell. What is happening there? In the aquaporin cases, or we can say in the aquaporin, water channels are formed there, and the extracellular molecules, they will be binding to the transport protein, and this transport protein will be rotating in such a manner that it will be moving towards the inner side of the cell and thus releasing the molecule. That is how the transport protein is helping for the molecule to move inside the cell. Okay, my dear children, that is related to, see, aquaporin, or we can say the water channel which is formed there, they are called aquaporin. These are the transport protein which is helping the molecules to move into the cell. So that is related to porin and aquaporin. Now the next topic is passive sympaths and antipodes. It is again very important. Some carrier proteins allow diffusion only in if two types of molecules move together. There are certain carrier proteins, they will be allowing diffusion only if the two types of molecules, they will be moving together, and they may be of three kinds: sympod, antipode and unipode. So there are carrier proteins which will be allowing the diffusion if the two types of molecules, they move together. That is one condition, and based on that we can say they are of three kinds: sympod, antipode and unipode. You can see, isn't it? This is sympod, this is antipode and this is unipode. So we can see what is the difference between sympod, antipode and unipode. In the case of symport, both types of molecules cross the membrane in the same direction. Both type of molecules. See, A and B, two types of molecules are there and they are crossing the membrane together. Such type is called symport. Now, in the case of antiport, both the molecules cross opposite direction. Both the molecules are present there, but what is happening there? They are opposite to each other. A is crossing from this side to this side and B is crossing from this end to that end, isn't it? So, they are opposite to each other. And in the case of uniport, molecules move across a membrane independent of other molecules. That is, if two molecules are present there, still they are independent to each other. They will be crossing the membrane, but they are not depending on other molecule. So, that is related to symport, antiport and uniport. It is again very important, my dear children. So, that is related to the facilitated diffusion. Now, the third means of transport is active transport. Transport of substances against concentration gradient is called active transport. That is, the transport of substances, if it is taking place against the concentration gradient, that is called active transport. And active transport needs energy. It is carried out by certain membrane proteins. The proteins involved in active transport act as pumps, and these pumps can transport substances from a low concentration to a high concentration. So, in the case of active transport, we can say energy is needed there, and number 2, protein molecules are needed there and they are acting as a pump, and with the help of these protein molecules, the other molecules, they are transported from the region of lower concentration to the region of higher concentration. That is why it is said it is transporting substances against the concentration gradient. Okay, dear children, you can see. So, this is a uphill transport from lower concentration to higher concentration. So, this type of transportation of substances is called uphill transport. You can see lower concentration to higher concentration, active transport is taking place. Here you can see the solute are present there or the solvent are present there and they are moving from the lower concentration to region of higher concentration. This is higher concentration where solutes are present there, and here only few solutes will be present there. So, the carrier protein is helping for the movement of substances from the region of lower concentration to the region of higher concentration, and when this movement is taking place, that time energy is utilized there, and this energy is in the form of ATP. So, ATP will be converted to, or it is being broken down into ADP plus PI, that is adenosine diphosphate and inorganic phosphate. So, ATP is utilized there for the transportation of molecules from the region of lower concentration to the region of higher concentration in the case of active transport. Now, we can see the features of active transport. Movement of molecules against a concentration gradient, use energy, carried out by membrane protein. Carrier proteins are specific and they are sensitive to inhibitors. So, if an inhibitor molecules, if they are present there, surely these carrier protein molecules, they will be very sensitive towards them, and sometimes their activity may be hindered by such kind of inhibitors. So, they are very specific to the inhibitors. So, that is related to the features of active transport. Now, we can see the comparison of different processes. We have seen simple diffusion, facilitated diffusion as well as active transport. So, now we can compare these three types of transport. Here you can see requires special membrane protein. In this case, diffusion does not require any membrane protein, but facilitated transport as well as active transport requires special membrane proteins. Now, next one, highly selective. Diffusion is not at all highly selective, but these two, that is facilitated as well as active transport, is highly selective. transport saturates. In the case of diffusion, no saturation point is there, but in the case of facilitated and active transport, saturation point is there. So, that time what will happen? The equilibrium is attained there. Now, uphill transport, in the case of simple diffusion as well as in the case of facilitated transport, no uphill transportation is taking place because the molecules, they are moving from higher concentration to the lower concentration. But in the case of active transport, uphill transport is taking place because here the molecules, they are moving from the region of lower concentration to the region of higher concentration. Requires ATP mole energy. In the case of simple diffusion as well as facilitated diffusion, no need of any ATP energy, but in the case of active transport, ATP energy is needed there as it is acting against the concentration gradient. So, that is how the comparison of different transport mechanism is taking place, and you have to go through it, my dear children. Again, it is important. Now, the next topic is plant water relations. In that, number 1, water potential. What is water potential? It is the difference in free energy of water molecules in the solution and that of pure water. The difference which is being taking place there in the water molecule in the solution and that of pure water, isn't it? The free energy is water potential. So, difference in the free energy of the water molecule is water potential, and it is measured in terms of pressure, and the unit of water potential is Pascal, that is Pa, and it is indicated by the Greek letter psi, PSI, psi. You can see the symbol for water potential. Okay. Next one, you can see here water potential is the tendency of water to move from one area to another. The tendency of water to move from one area to another. Here high water potential is present there. Why? Because there is low concentration of solute. The solute which is present in this area is very less as compared to the water molecule, and in this area you can see the number of solute present here is more than the number of water present here. So, we can say here the low water potential is present there. So, in this area the water potential is low when compared to this area. Okay. So, here dilute solution and here concentrated solution. So, what will happen? The water molecules, they are higher here. So, surely the movement of water from the region of higher concentration to the lower concentration will be taking place. That is net movement of water. You can see this arrow. Okay. So, this is dilute concentration because here solute molecules are less, and this is concentrated solution because here solute molecules are more as compared to the water molecule. So, through the membrane the water molecules will be moving from the region of higher concentration to the region of lower concentration. Here the water potential is higher, here the water potential is lower. Next one, the water potential of pure water at the normal temperature and pressure is 0. In the pure water the water potential is 0. You can see the water potential of pure water is equal to 0. Now, the external pressure and the amount of solute are the two factors which affect water potential. There are two factors which is affecting the water potential, and they are the amount of solute as well as the external pressure. Now, the additional solute causes lowering of water potential. In the pure water, when we are adding more amount of solute, surely that becomes a solution, and there we can see low water potential as compared to the water potential of pure water. Now, we can come to the next part, factors affecting water potential. Number 1, concentration of solute, that is called solute potential. Concentration of solute, that is called solute potential. Number 2 is the pressure, and that is called pressure potential. And here you can see these solute potential and pressure potential, they are related to water potential, and we can see the relation between these three. They are expressed by the following equation: water potential is equal to pressure potential plus solute potential. So, pressure potential plus solute potential gives water potential of the solution. So, you can see now what is solute potential. Psi S is the solute concentration. It is also known as osmotic potential because solutes affect the direction of osmosis. Number 2, solutes bind to water, reducing the number of free water molecules, thus lowering the water's ability to do work. That is, in the pure water, if solutes are added there, they will be binding to the water. So, what will happen? That solution will be having low water potential. That is, the ability of the water to do work will be reduced there. Now, the solute potential of pure water is 0. Solute potential of pure water. Why? Because in the pure water no solute are present there, therefore it is 0. Now, solute potential of any solution at atmospheric pressure is always negative. At atmospheric pressure is always negative. The solute potential of any solution at atmospheric pressure is always negative. Why? Answer is less free water molecules to do work, because in the solution the solute potential is more as compared to the water potential. That is, more solute is present there in that solution as compared to the water molecules. So, what will happen? The free water molecules which are there, they are less, and the work to be done by the water will be decreasing. That is why it is said that the solute potential of any solution at atmospheric pressure is always negative. So, that is result, that is related to solute potential. Now, number 2 is pressure potential. It is the positive pressure which develops due to osmotic entry of water into the cell. So, pressure potential is always positive, and it is a positive pressure and it is developing there due to the osmotic entry of water into the cell. It is also called hydrostatic or Turger pressure. Pressure potential is also called hydrostatic or Turger pressure. Pressure potential is a tendency of water to move in response to pressure. In response to pressure, the water will be moving from the region of higher concentration to the region of lower concentration. Turger pressure is an important source of pressure on water in the cell. Okay. So, Turger pressure as well as, so this Turger pressure is the pressure potential, and this Turger pressure is giving a positive pressure on the plasma membrane. But on the opposite side there is a wall pressure which is pushing the cell and making the cell wall to be expanded. So, Turger pressure is a positive pressure which is being created there due to the osmotic entry of water into the cell. The value of pressure potential is always positive. Now, number 2 is osmosis. So, number 1 was water potential, and number 2 now we are going to understand about osmosis. Diffusion of water or any solvent molecule, diffusion of water or any solvent molecule. See my dear children, in the case of diffusion we have studied and understand that any particle or any molecule, it may be solute or it may be solvent, isn't it? It is moving from the region of higher concentration to the region of lower concentration. But in the case of osmosis, it is been said that diffusion of water or any solvent molecule through a semi-permeable membrane is called osmosis. This is very, very important. When the water molecule or any solvent molecule is moving across the membrane, that molecules they have to cross this membrane, that is semi-permeable membrane they have to cross. That process is called osmosis. It is taking place from a region of higher concentration to the region of lower concentration. Osmosis is driven by two factors, number 1 pressure gradient and number 2 concentration gradient. So, osmosis is depending on two factors, number 1 pressure gradient and number 2 concentration gradient. Plasma membrane is semi-permeable or selectively permeable membrane. Plasma membrane is semi-permeable or it is selectively permeable membrane. We can see here the osmosis, movement of solvent from the from low to higher solute concentration, from that is related to solute concentration. Okay. Here you can see this is semi permeable membrane, solute concentration, and water molecules is more there, and this is high concentration of solute, isn't it? In the case here you can see, now what is happening there, the water from this side where the concentration of solute is less, from here the water molecules will start to move to this side where the solute concentration is more but the water level is less. So what will happen, you can see here same concentration is developed here and the equilibrium is been attained there, as the water from this area has moved to this area and making this area in a balanced state. So this is what osmosis. But here what is happening, a semi permeable membrane is present there which is allowing only selective molecules to move through it or to pass through it. So related to osmosis, two experiments are there. Number one, in your textbook you can see, number one, two chambers A and B containing solutions having different concentrations are separated by a semi permeable membrane. So you can see here, this is solute molecule, this is water molecule, this is solute molecule. Okay, my dear children, this one is solute molecule, this one is water molecule. Here unknowingly this arrow is being reached here only, it has to be here. So this is solute molecule, this is water molecule, and this one is the semi permeable membrane. Okay, based on this experiment, there are certain questions given in your textbook. Just go through those questions and answer to those questions. I think you will be able to answer to it. If you are not able to answer to it, you can call me and you can clarify your doubts. So this experiment you have to do, it is very, very important. Now experiment number 2 is related to Thistell funnel experiment, and you can see here sucrose solution is taken in a funnel. This is a funnel which is called Thistell funnel. You can see here, this is a funnel which is called, from the bottom it is open and you can see a long neck. This type of funnel is called Thistell funnel, and in this funnel sugar solution, or we can say sucrose solution, is taken. Then it is immersed in a beaker containing pure water, and this is a beaker which is having pure water, and before it is immersed into it, you can see at the bottom there is certain membrane which is being fixed there to the membrane, and this membrane is semi permeable membrane. Here egg membrane is taken there, as egg membrane is a semi permeable membrane. So in the experiment related to the osmosis, where Thistell funnel experiment is being done, and in the Thistell funnel at the bottom is being covered by an egg membrane, as egg membrane is a semi permeable membrane. Now you can see what happens after filling the sucrose solution in this funnel and filling the water in the beaker. This apparatus is been kept aside for a few hours, and later on we can see in this case, this was the initial level of the solution, isn't it? In this sugar solution or sucrose solution has been filled, and this was the initial level of the solution, and later on after few hours you can see here the initial level has raised, or we can say the initial level has raised to the final level of the solution. This shows that the water from the beaker has entered into the Thistell funnel through the semi permeable membrane, and thus making this area a dilute solution. That is, equilibrium is maintained there between the beaker and the Thistell funnel. This process of movement of water molecules from the region of higher concentration to the region of lower concentration is called osmosis, and this osmosis process is being demonstrated with the help of Thistell funnel experiment. Thistell funnel experiment, this one is again very, very important. Now you can see here the solution and the water is separated by means of semi permeable membrane, that is the egg membrane. The water will move into the funnel, resulting in the rise of level of solution in the funnel. It will continue till the equilibrium is reached. So that is related to osmosis, and based on osmosis we can see the next topic, that is osmotic pressure. What is osmotic pressure? The pressure required to stop the passage of water completely is called osmotic pressure. When the water is entering into the beaker, or we can say into the solution where the water is less and the solute concentration is more, that time when the equilibrium is attained, and after that also if water is moving again and again, what will happen? Sometimes the equilibrium may not be maintained. So, a pressure is required there to stop the entry of water into the solution, and this pressure which is required there to stop the passage of water is called osmotic pressure, and that is again important, and it is represented by pi. You can see the symbol here, pi. Osmotic pressure is positive, whereas osmotic potential is negative. Osmotic potential is also called solute potential. So, do not get confused by osmotic pressure and osmotic potential. Osmotic potential is also called solute potential, and osmotic potential or solute potential is always negative, whereas osmotic pressure is always positive. So, that is related to the osmotic pressure, and the next one is related to osmotic concentration. So, based on osmotic concentration, there are three types of solutions. One is hypotonic, hypertonic and isotonic. In the case of hypotonic, we can see if two solutions are separated by plasma membrane, then the solution with less solute concentration is called hypotonic solution. That means, in the solution, if the solute concentration is less and the concentration of solvent is more, such type of solution is called hypotonic solution. And in the case of hypertonic solution, from the name itself, that is, if two solutions are separated by plasma membrane, then the solution which is higher solute concentration is called hypertonic solution. That means, if the solution is having more solute than the water or solvent, we can say such solution is called hypertonic solution. Okay. And the third one is isotonic solution. If two solutions are separated by plasma membrane and both the solution have equal amount of solute concentration, then it is known as isotonic. From the name itself, isotonic. That means, the solution, if it is having equal amount of solute and solvent, then it is called isotonic solution. In the case of hypotonic, lesser amount of solute is present there, but more amount of solvent is present there, we can say it as hypotonic. And here, if more amount of solute is there and lesser amount of solvent is there, we can say it as hypertonic solution. So, that is related to the three types of solution based on osmotic concentration. Now, we can see the types of osmosis. Osmosis is of two types, N osmosis and X osmosis. What is N osmosis? Osmotic entry of water into the cell or system is called end osmosis. That is, if water is entering into the cell, we can say it is end osmosis. And what is X osmosis? Osmotic withdrawal of water from a cell or a system. That means, if the water is moving out of the cell through the process of osmosis, we can say it as X osmosis. Now, when we place the cell in higher concentration, the water comes out of the cell by the process called X osmosis. When we are placing a cell in the higher concentration of solution, that is, in the solution, if solute concentration is more and the solvent concentration is less, that solution will be higher concentration solution. And in that, if you are placing a cell, what will happen? Surely from the cell, the water will be moving out, isn't it? And that process is called X osmosis. See, in one example I can say, when a mango is being put in the higher concentration of salt, what will happen? Surely that from the mango, the water will be coming out into the solution, isn't it? That process is called X osmosis. Now, next one, when we place the cell in lower concentration of water, lower concentration, the water enters into the cell by the process called endosmosis. And what is endosmosis? when the cell is placed in the lower concentration of the solute. That means in a solution where the water concentration is more and the solute concentration is less. In such cases, the cell will be absorbing more water and that process is called endosmosis. For example, dried grapes when put in the water. When we are putting dried grapes in water, what will happen? After some time, it will become turgid, isn't it? It will bulge because the entry of water is taking place in it, and that process is called endosmosis. You can see here hypertonic and hypertonic, isn't it? In the case of hypertonic, water is entering, and in the case of hypertonic, water is moving out. Hypotonic solution is showing the entry of water into the cell from the external surrounding. In hypertonic environment, we can see the water is moving out into the external environment. This is exosmosis and this one is endosmosis. I think you would have understood about endosmosis and exosmosis. It is very, very important, my dear children. Now, based on exosmosis, there is a phenomenon, there is a process called plasmolysis. What is plasmolysis? It is a process in plant cells where the plasma membrane pulls away from the cell wall due to the loss of water through osmosis. So, when exosmosis is taking place there in the cell, surely it will be leading to plasmolysis. Okay, my dear children. So, this is plasmolysed cell. Hypertonic solution, when the cell is put there, surely what will happen? The plasma membrane will be driven out from the cell wall and it becomes shrunken, and that is because of the process called plasmolysis, or we can say because of the exosmosis taking place, what will happen? Plasma membrane is becoming shrunken. And now you can see in the case of isotonic area, what happened? The water is being entering into the cell, and what is happening there? The water from the external environment is getting inside, and from the internal environment it is moving out. That is, equilibrium is maintained there on both the sides. That is related to isotonic solution. So, the cell will be flaccid, okay, in a normal state. But in the case of hypotonic solution, you can see here what is happening from the external environment, the water is getting into the cell. So, because of that, what happens? The cell becomes turgid or it bulges out. So, that is the difference between the solutions, and in the solution when the cell is being kept, what will happen? In hypertonic solution, when cell is kept, plasmolysed condition will be taking place. In the hypotonic solution, when the cell is kept, turgid condition will be taking place. But in the case of isotonic solution, the cell will be getting its original state, and that is a flaccid state. Okay. So, that is related to plasmolysis. We can see the difference between plasmolysis and deplasmolysis. Plasmolysis, it occurs when a tissue is placed in hypertonic solution. Deplasmolysis occurs when freshly plasmolysed cells are kept in hypotonic solution or pure solvent. That is, after plasmolysis, when that cell is again kept into the hypertonic solution or pure solvent, what will happen? Again the water enters into the cell. So, and the cell will be regaining its original state, that is deplasmolysis. Plasmolysis is the result of exosmosis, deplasmolysis is the result of endosmosis. In the case of plasmolysis, it involves shrinking of protoplast from the cell wall. In the case of deplasmolysis, it is swelling of shrunken protoplast so as to come in contact with the cell wall. So, here what happens? Original state of the cell is taking place. In the case of plasmolysis, it is not reversible after a long interval of time. But in the case of deplasmolysis, it is reversible even after an interval. So, that is the difference between plasmolysis and deplasmolysis. This one is again very important, my dear children. You have to study it. Next one is related to the next topic, that is turgor pressure. What is turgor pressure? The pressure of water against the cell wall of a plant cell. In a plant cell there is a cell wall, and if a pressure is exerted against that cell wall, that is called turgor pressure. It gives shape and firmness to the plant stem and leaves. It maintains water balance. Now what is the negative feedback of turgor pressure? We can see it helps to keep excess water from entering the plant. An increase in turgor pressure decreases the movement of water molecule into the cell. When the turgor pressure is increased, automatically the water molecule which is entering into the cell will be decreased. An increase in water molecule entering the cell eventually causes fewer water molecule to move into the cell. Now when the water molecule is increased there, which is entering into the cell, causes fewer water molecule. That means if there is an increase of water molecule taking place, automatically when turgor pressure is taking place, from that increase only few water molecules will be entering or moving into the cell. So that is the negative feedback of turgor pressure related to the cell. Now we can see the difference between turgor pressure and wall pressure. This pressure exerted by the cell contents on the cell wall. Cell contents, they are exerting pressure on the cell wall, that is called turgor pressure. Wall pressure, it is a pressure which is exerted by the cell wall on its content. This is opposite to turgor pressure. In the case of wall pressure, the cell wall is exerting the pressure on the content present in the cell. Number 2, turgor pressure occurs due to turgidity of the cell. When the cell is turgid or it is totally completely bulged, turgor pressure is taking place. In the case of wall pressure, it is exerted against the turgor pressure. That is, when the turgor pressure is taking place and due to that what will happen, the bulging state is taking place, that time turgor pressure is taking place. But what is wall pressure? Wall pressure is just opposite to turgor pressure. It is exerting pressure on the turgor pressure. Now excess turgor pressure results in the rupture of cell wall. If turgor pressure is excess there, what will happen? As it is giving pressure to the cell wall, so the cell wall will be rupturing there. In the case of wall pressure, it maintains the structure of the cell. The wall pressure is maintaining the structure of the cell as it is exerting pressure against the turgor pressure. So that is related to the difference between turgor pressure and wall pressure. I think you would have understood about it, my dear children. Next topic is imbibition. Certain substances, if placed in a particular liquid, absorbs it and swells it. Certain substances are there, when they are placed in a particular liquid, isn't it? They will absorb that liquid and they will swell up. For example, when piece of dry wood or dry seeds are placed in water, they absorb the water quickly and swells up considerably so that their volume is increased. See, I told you one example, dry mango when kept in water or dry grapes when kept in water, what will happen? It will swells up. Or we can say when a dry wood is placed in water, automatically that dry wood will absorb the water and its volume will increase. That is imbibition. These substances are called as imbibents. The substances which are absorbing the water, they are called imbibents, and the phenomenon as imbibition, and the process is called imbibition. These exist certain pressure or force of attraction in between the imbibent and the imbibed substances. Now in plant, this is because of the presence of a large number of hydrophilic colloids both in living as well as dead cells in the form of protein, carbohydrates such as starch, cellulose, pectic substances etc., which have strong attraction towards water. In the plants there are hydrophilic colloids, they are present there and they have strong attraction towards water. So these hydrophilic colloids, they are having an attraction, strong attraction towards the water, and these hydrophilic colloids, they will be increasing in volume as they are doing the process called imbibition. I think you would have understood about imbibition. Two conditions are necessary for imbibition to take place. This is important. Number one, water potential gradient between the surface of the imbibant and the liquid imbibed. So, water potential gradient should be there. As more amount of water, if it has to be absorbed, surely the molecule which is there to imbibe that water should have less water potential. So, what will happen from the region of higher concentration to the region of lower concentration, the water will be moving. So, water potential gradient is important. Number two, affinity between the imbibant and the imbibed liquid, that is there should be attraction between the imbibant, that is the molecule which is going to absorb, and the imbibed liquid, that is the solvent which is to be absorbed by the imbibant. So, this imbibant and imbibed liquid should have affinity between together. So, this is the two condition needed there which is taking place in the molecule, and the process is called imbibition. So, imbibition is a process where absorption of water is taking place by certain molecules or certain substances, and there they need two conditions. One is water potential gradient, the other one is affinity between the imbibant as well as imbibed liquid. I think you would have understood about the imbibition and the condition needed for the imbibition to take place. My dear children, with this I wind the session here. Please go through this topic, as this topic is very easy, my dear children. You can, if you are showing interest, and you will be able to understand it very easily, go through the chapter very nicely. And if you are having any doubt related to today's topic, please don't hesitate to call me. Please clarify your doubt and be always on the track. By saying this, I wind up the session here. We will be meeting soon in the next session. Till then, take care.